Computer. All right, welcome everyone, and Mike and Dimitri who are here live with me. Thank you for coming in, and for those of you that are all listening, I know everyone has reached out. When you listen to this in recording, just shoot me an email so I know that you've listened to it and you're staying up with the office hours here. And this is meant to be a little bit of instruction, but more like to answer questions. So if you have questions and you're listening to the recording, you have to reach out to me. One of the big things that's new right now is that the test is live, but we're going to focus on that next week. We'll kind of start digging into that after tonight, and I'll send instructions out on what we're doing, and maybe we'll even probably maybe split it up. Maybe everybody takes 5 or 6 questions and focus on those 5 questions. We'll come back together, review the test, be done with it. It'll be off our plates. The other thing you have to make sure is that you've registered with the NJSIAA on the NJSIAA.org website, paid your fees, because you have to do that through the state. It's insurance, and it's also your background check. And the concussion course, if you haven't done that, make sure you do that. But I'll get a list of if things are missing, and I need to get everyone's just actual addresses and things. We'll get that next week. So you guys on the call, anything you want to touch on before we get started? Mike, Dimitri, anything? No?
I think I'm pretty good with most stuff except for the high school. The difference, like throw-ins.
Yep. We're going to get into that tonight a little bit. Okay.
The rules that are a little different from travel.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, no worries. We'll get into that for sure. Okay. So this is part 2. I want to go back a couple slides. I missed a couple things in the last class I want to cover before we get into tonight. Tonight is going to be about misconduct and restarts, and that kind of rounds out pretty much everything, because we did like game management stuff last week. But one thing we did miss was the lightning rule, and it's pretty consistent with most of our outdoor sports in the state of New Jersey, that whenever we have lightning, if you hear thunder or see lightning, the 30-minute clock starts. Obviously, you have to clear the field, suspend play, clear the field. You can't stay out on the field. You have to go somewhere else. And you start your timer for 30 minutes. And every time you hear or see lightning or thunder, you have to reset that clock and start that timer again. If it gets too late and it's going to get dark, if you're at an afternoon game, it is what it is. You just, suspend the game if you can't finish it. So the other thing we did not cover is we did cover that game authority. Like, nothing big about this, but we are in charge when the referee enters the field or the surroundings. Like, so when that crew comes on at least 15 minutes prior to the game. So if you're supposed to be on the field 15 minutes prior to the game. That's when your jurisdiction or your authority starts. So that could be unsportsmanlike conduct between teams, things like that, right? Anything that happens before you arrive at the field, you do not rule on. That has nothing to do with you. That's game administration. And it ends when we leave the field and its immediate surroundings. So you can interpret that a little bit, meaning like, if you're like, still close enough to the field, like something happens, a coach comes over and starts berating you, you're basically still considered to be part of that game. Okay. But so that is that's what we have for those two things. I forgot to cover off on those. Hey, David, welcome. I see you're connecting here still. So they're the two things: game authority and lightning. So David, welcome. We're just getting started. Just got started here. I think you're on mute. I don't hear you, but that's okay. You see everything? You see our screen? We're good? Good to go? Okay, good. All right. So part two, this is the rest of everything, really. Like, I mean, we're not going to cover everything in the rule book. Like, I think we're all grown-ups. We can take the rule book and read it. And because in the rule book, it has like case plays and things like that. So you can just read through and you'll pick up things that we're not really going to talk about. In fact, some things don't happen that often. So try to talk about a lot of the things that do happen, right? So let's talk about misconduct and restarts and really pretty much everything else that's in the rule book. I mean, there might be some other things in here that don't fall into these two buckets right now. So we think of violations and misconduct. We think about us as officials, like, our job is to officiate the game and keep it balanced, right? So one team doesn't get an advantage by breaking the rules. So we're there to adjudicate the rules and keep everything kind of fair. And one of the things that we have at our disposal, and as you all know that have been officiating in the travel world, USSF, is that we have that yellow card. That's our caution, right? In other sports, they have different tools. As a basketball official, we give someone a foul. We have technical fouls and common fouls, but in soccer, right, it's pretty much we have this caution. And when you look at this list, and I would encourage you, like, this is kind of a highlighted list. I would encourage you to, check out this section of the rule book. But, we give cautions, which is a yellow card, and notice how it's displayed above the head near and we address the player. And we said the other day that one of the differences between FIFA, USSF type rules and high school National Federation rules are that when we issue a caution to a player, we stop the clock, and that player must be can be substituted for, but they must leave the field of play. And so it's an odd thing, right? So for those of you that are really kind of used to, like, just, there's like flow in the game, and you have a caution where you're going to stop somebody for any of these things, right? Language, it could be all those things you see on the list. You might stop the game and then you just like restart and you get going again, but that doesn't happen in high school. You actually have to go over and explain to the coach. Not a big explanation. You have to just tell them what the caution was for. So you walk with the player close enough to where you can actually communicate with the head coach, say, Coach, 25 White, or 25 is receiving a caution for language. And if he says, well, what did he say? You could repeat it. If it's a bad word, you might say, whatever, right? But you can, be very specific on what they've done. And we'll talk about other ways to word that, because that's kind of unique, right? Like, I don't think you do that in USSF, but you guys can tell me if it's different. But look at all the things that would cause you to stop the game and have someone come out of the game with a caution, right? So if they come onto the field without your permission, remember, we beckon people onto the field. So, I mean, you give a little latitude here. Like, if you stop the game, you're assuming that you're beckoning them on to come in. We typically wave them on. Persistent infringement of the rules, that's anytime they're constantly breaking a rule or fouling someone. So persistent infringement is a cautionable offense. Dissent, obviously, to an official, profane language, anything that's unsporting, including taunting, because remember in our pregame, we talked about the other day, taunting is something we warn them about, so that this is your only warning for taunting and baiting an opponent. Excessive celebration as well. And it could be a caution, or it even could be a send-off violation. If they taunt the visiting team, then it is a send-off violation, actually. The other thing is delaying a restart. A lot of times we get this when they come within the kind of, the buffer zone there, the 10 yards, or they're the next bullet encroaching of a free kick. Delaying a restart could be they just like take their time and like they're just trying to delay the game. Now you can stop. Now in high school, different than other USSF, we can stop the clock. Stop the clock and say, that's a warning. You're taking too much time. And then the next time you can give them a caution. Just because you stop the clock doesn't mean you have to caution them. But if you know that they're delaying and it's a delay tactic, just stop the clock. Our signal is hands overhead, stop the clock. That's our signal for stop the clock. And actually, because you have to be pretty cognizant of, especially if they have a timer, you have to make sure that they stop it as well. So you stop your watch and see what the timer is doing. Coaches can be cautioned if they're outside the team area, of course. Again, you try to warn people, you give them the friendly warning and then you give them the official caution, right? And of course, coaches and bench personnel can be carded directly, right? Just for being nasty or whatever, if you've had enough. So that's our misconduct list. And that's obviously, for those of you new to soccer, that's why we carry the yellow and the red card. That's our tool. Our tool is to control the game when certain things get out of whack here. Like if you see that there's offenses that are kind of bending the rules a little bit and the balance has shifted. Okay. Now, cautions continued, right? So these are some more that just couldn't make that list before. If they're using video or communication to assist in coaching, now they are allowed to have an iPad on the side in high school, but they can't be using it to do some type of coaching. I don't know what the difference is. I've never seen it, but obviously no tobacco, coaching outside the box. The other thing is a player that fakes an injury or simulates a foul. That's one that we kind of don't call much, but you have that tool. You might hear it called a dive. Player goes down and is trying to draw a foul, and it really isn't. And again, excessive goal celebration or anything that's reckless. So that's our cautionable offenses. Okay. Very similar to, the wording might be a little different than FIFA, USSF, but pretty much the same stuff, right? They're pretty much in alignment there. We do have handling cautions. So how do we handling, not handball, but how do we handle a caution, right? So as we said, they must go off. They may be subbed for. They can play short if they want. Okay, not an issue. So, and if you hear things like nasty stuff coming from the bench area, you can just give the caution to the coach. The coach is responsible for the bench. So, but you can directly, if you know it's a number 5 sitting on the bench, you can give that card directly to that player. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about illegally equipped. So if someone's illegally equipped, not improperly, but illegally equipped, they have something that's not legal, then they have to go off and they can sub the next time. And any subsequent illegal equipment is carded. The players are carded. So basically, I don't think that's worded well, but the first card goes to the coach. So if you have illegal equipment, someone is playing with earrings, you already warned them about jewelry. They come out and all of a sudden you notice someone has an earring in. You already warned them about that. And the coach certified at the beginning of the game that they're properly equipped according to National Federation rules and going to practice good sportsmanship. Now, all of a sudden, a kid comes out with earrings on. You notice it in the run of play. Okay. At the next dead situation, stop the clock, right? And you card the coach because they're responsible. And that's, I think, a little bit different than most rule sets. And then subsequent, now the players get that. So the coach always gets the first one when it comes to illegal equipment. Taunting is always a red card. Now, it says that, but it's taunting. It has to be taunting that is really excessive. And any taunting, I think there's another slide in here that talks about taunting around race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or disability. That's part of our pregame talk, that none of that is tolerated. That is automatic ejection or it's called disqualification. They're automatically disqualified if they taunt someone around race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or disability. That's an automatic send-off. The other thing is there's some things, and we'll talk about those later, fouls on an obvious goal scoring opportunity and the goal is scored, that would be a caution. But I have a chart on that. I did share with you guys, and I'll show you that right at the end tonight. Okay. Again, jump in if you guys have any questions. Now, the other type of card that we can give is a red card, which is anytime you get 2 cautions, yellow cards, all right, that is an automatic send-off, right? And they cannot be replaced. So number 10, this is the second yellow card. The official would hold up the yellow card and then pull the red card out. We do them separately, one at a time. And that would be just for an accumulation of 2 cautions, okay? These other ones are straight disqualifications or red cards, or sometimes you call them send-offs, because you get 1 red card and you are sent off, right? So that's for violent conduct, taunting, especially around race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, disability, serious foul play, and that's just like really like nasty stuff, okay? Especially if it's meant to injure someone. If there's a handling that prevents a goal, so a defender is back there, the keeper is maybe out from the goal area, and they're back there and a ball's coming and they put their hand up to stop the ball from going in. There's a red card, okay? Because the ball did not go in. DOGSO, we'll talk about later, denial of a goal scoring opportunity, or DOGSO. That's
I'm sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
On the previous one, it says if the ball does not go into a goal. What if the ball goes into a goal? Do we caution them still?
We do caution them, correct. Yep, we do caution them.
Thank you.
Yep. DOGSO we'll talk about at the end of tonight. That'll be our last topic. So let me just save that for later. But things like spitting, super offensive language, like if it's just like, if you can tolerate it, but you know it wasn't nice, you could go with a caution. Or if it's super nasty and it's directed at you and like you think that's a send-off type violation, you give them a send-off. Here's the thing you have to remember. And the last bullet there says, anytime there's a fight, the players that are fighting are automatically sent off. And by the way, in the state of New Jersey, a fight is defined as striking or attempting to strike an opponent. So they could swing and miss, that's still fighting. And players that come off the bench into the playing area, whether or not they participate in the fight or not, they are carded, sent off, okay? Because we don't want players coming onto the field if there's a fight or a potential fight. Now, oh my gosh, what was I going to say? I was going down a path, now I forgot it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. In New Jersey, here's the thing. A straight red card offense for something like language, fighting, anything like that. When you have a straight red card in the state of New Jersey, you actually have to fill out an online form. And I would say, if you have that, do not attempt to do that yourself. You reach out to me, or you reach out to someone that's on the executive board of this organization. We will help you with that process. You don't have to figure it out. We'll walk you through, because filling out that report is super important, because that student athlete is disqualified for the next 2 matches. And you can't go back the next day and say, oh, you know, it wasn't that bad. I'm going to downgrade it to a yellow or a caution. No dice. Once you've disqualified them, the 2 games carry, and you get, in fact, I'll cover this when we cover disqualifications later on process, but you must notify the athletic director that's on the site and the coach that player's been disqualified, and they pretty much know that. And you must call the athletic director at the school that's impacted within 24 hours. So there's a lot of things that have to happen, but I'll give you those details. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, that does not come into the case when you have 2 cautions, or it does not come into the case where you have a straight red for like a dog, so denial of goal scoring opportunity. The only time we have this 2-game suspension in New Jersey is if that red card is something around serious foul play or misconduct or fighting. That's if it's a straight disqualification or red card, a send off for those things, that's when it carries and you can't take it back. So you got to be sure when you pull that red card out for something like that, make sure you're sure, because there's no change in your mind after that.
Is it just the 2 games even for a fight if you start punching somebody and you still get just 2 games? Or there's different factors that can,
No, you always do.
well,
Yeah. Even if you come off the bench and don't participate in the fight, you have a 2-game suspension as well.
I understand that, but what if a player starts hitting another player? Is it
Uh-huh.
still just 2 games, or there's different factors that can make that suspension longer?
No, there are no longer. No, there are no longer, meaning longer penalties. They don't 5 games or anything, nothing like that.
Yeah, well, that's too bad, actually.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I think it's 3, if a team gets 3 disqualifications, I think it's 3 in a season, they're not eligible for the playoffs. And it happens all the time, right? Not 2 yellows, but 3 send-offs, direct reds. So,
Oh, that's good to know.
yep. So you
Because
got to
my
be
last EDP game was terminated for a fight.
Yeah, right.
And if it was up to me, that kid that just start punching the other one in the head, I would have punished him more than just 2 games.
Well, the state handles all that. All we do is submit the report. You submit exactly what you see, but that's something we'll help you with. It's not even worth going into the details, because anytime you have a situation where you must fill out the online report, we help. The executive board will help you fill that out. You just need to write down. That's why you get those sheets that have the numbers, and you write down notes. What happened? Who did what number 14 swung first, 7 retaliated, blah, 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 whatever it is, you write it down. They said the F word, exactly what they said, you write down, because you're going to need to report on that. You can't just say, well, they cursed. They're going to ask you, what did they say? And you have to write all that stuff down. All right. So they're the caution. We have cautions and disqualifications. Let's talk about, as we move into more of like fouls. Okay. For those of you that are new, and there's a handful of folks in the class, they're kind of new to soccer, right? Different than other sports. We, like football, like when you tackle someone in football, you tackle the person carrying the ball, right? Well, obviously in soccer, we don't do that. However, there is an instance where contact is legal in soccer, because some contact can be incidental. And this concept of charging, there's the term tackling and charging, right? So tackling is when a player goes to challenge someone that is handling the ball. And the only way you can tackle someone is you must contact the ball, and tackle doesn't mean that you've actually upset the person. In fact, in high school, we're very protective of the student athlete. Just because they contact the ball does not mean that's a fair challenge at all, especially if it's from the side or from behind. Different from in front, but from this, and you guys know that have been doing this for a while, and you'll get the feel of it. Like if it looks like it's unfair, it's easy to blow the whistle and stop play, because most people won't complain. Where they will complain is if there's contact, like this play here from behind, and it causes someone to be at a disadvantage, and they weren't really playing the ball. They were going through the person to get the ball. But there's this thing of called charging. And a lot of times we as officials get this wrong because it's a challenge where two players make contact with one another. Now, they must be both within playing distance of the ball. If not, that's called obstruction. That's a whole different thing. But if they're within, like these two players right here, the defender, whatever number 2 I think it is there, the defender can legally make contact with the ball handler there by, as long as he doesn't extend the arm, can make contact with the shoulder to the other shoulder or to the body. As long as it's not from behind and it's side, shoulder to shoulder, kind of upright. They don't leave their feet. They have at least 1 foot on the ground and they're within playing distance of the ball. Then, and again, it can't be reckless or careless and they can't like cream them, right? But if it's like contact that causes that person handling the ball to go down, that would be considered a fair charge. And we should allow that as part of the game of soccer. But again, if they extend the elbow and the arm to push that player down, or they come from behind, that player never saw them coming and just rammed them with the shoulder into the back, right? Or even if they came and just creamed them excessively, right, with excessive force from the front and just ran them over with the shoulder, not good. It needs to be kind of like, you'd have to judge that it would be fair, right? Fairly took that player off the ball. That's the only way legally you can take someone off the ball. You can take the ball off the player, but you can't take the player off the ball unless it's a fair charge. Okay. And you know what, as toward, we'll play some videos another day and go into that, right? This is an easy way for those of you in USSF, you probably heard this before, but if you're new to the game, officiating here, remember these letters, CREF, C-R-E-F. C stands for careless, R for reckless, E-F, excessive force. This is our stack ranking of fouls. When we have a foul, whether we decide what is the severity of that foul, meaning if it's just careless, like think of what careless driving is, like you run over a fire hydrant because you just weren't paying attention, you're back into somebody, it's kind of an ordinary offense. Like, I didn't mean to do that. Like, I really was trying, but I really didn't mean to do that. And the penalty is obviously the offended team gets a direct free kick. And we'll talk about that in a minute, just as a review. But the upgrade from C is R, which is reckless. So if you think that any of those things we talked about before, it was, and I'll go back to them, right? So go back to all these things. It was unsporting, okay? It was persistent infringement, meaning they fouled. A persistent infringement can be where someone fouls somebody like 3 times in a row, and they were just careless for 3 times, but you're like, you can't be careless a million times. And in fact, a lot of times you say, look, that's your 3rd one of these. The next one is, I'm going to consider reckless. You need to clean that up, right? So any of these things that, if it's unsporting, right, that's where we can upgrade it. But more likely is that reckless is a foul that is meant to also intentionally put the team at a disadvantage. We put the word intentional there. So they're usually not playing the ball. They're intentionally trying to foul someone. So whenever we have intent, there's a lot of things we can think about, and we'll get into that in a second here. Like what are some things we should think about that would make it upgradable like that? Excessive force is easy, right? That's your direct red, your send off. So when someone, that could be a punch, could be spit. It's that serious foul play, as it's called in the rule book, and you can read about that. That's our red card. The restart for all these is a direct free kick. So to the team that's offended, we'll start the game with a direct free kick. Depending on where the foul occurs, depending on, because if we have a type of foul that's in the penalty area, we'll restart it a little bit differently, obviously. So here's some consideration on the severity of fouls. Think of CREF, right? So careless, you say, well, is it careless, reckless, or excessive force? And so you have to think of these things. And like, how do you process this? Well, you kind of have a feel for the game. If you played soccer, you probably know. If you haven't played soccer, you'll have to start to build that feel. Like, what was the intent? If someone grabs someone's shirt from behind, the intent was to slow them down and stop them. That is not careless, that's reckless at a minimum. If they pulled their shirt and choked them to death and threw them over, it could be excessive force. That's your judgment, whether it was reckless or excessive force. It depends on how much force is applied, right? It depends on the position of the field. Like what happens in the mid part of the field compared to the attacking third could be completely different. It also depends on the reaction of players. If the player that caused the foul doesn't look like there's any remorse, like, oh, sorry, tries to help him up, like that goes a long way to determine whether that was careless or reckless, because they might have accidentally tripped them, like here in this case on this picture. Like it could be accidental, but if number two actually swung his leg and the ball and was nowhere near to get that ball, you could say that's reckless. And if he really swung him with his studs up and maybe clipped them, you could say that's with excessive force. And think about whether they're challenging for the ball or they're playing the person. You can also think about playing history. As you start to work more games, you'll know what teams are kind of a little bit more chippy, right? And that's where you can call lots of careless fouls, but eventually you want to pull out that yellow card and something could be reckless because you want to slow the game down. Obviously, safety, sportsmanship, and we already talked about taunting. At a minimum, a light taunt could be reckless, but if it's around race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, disability, automatic send off, yellow card or red card. Okay. So you guys are USSF, you've heard that CREF stuff before, right? Yep. That's how you think of it. Careless. Yep.
Yep.
And you know, I would say when you're new officiating, especially if you're working more competitive games, if you're working the EDP stuff and it's maybe younger kids, you know, the fouls tend to be more careless. Like there's very few 9-year-olds that are going out recklessly trying to like hurt people. But in high school, you got a whole different world. Like they're playing at a different level, especially if you're working a varsity level game. That's part of the tactics. A tactical foul is always reckless, right? So they pull someone down from behind and they're not playing the ball. That's a tactical foul designed to stop play, stop a promising attack. That is a reckless foul. And I'll tell you, it's funny. I can remember one. I had a call in a game. It was actually a championship game, and I just called it as an ordinary careless foul. And after the game, my observer said that was intentionally meant to stop play. That's reckless. I was like, you know what? You're right. Tight game, 1-1 game. I kind of let it go. But the reality is, by the rules support you pulling out your yellow card and cautioning that player that was a tactical foul designed to stop a promising attack. Therefore, that's a reckless foul. Okay. So that's how we think of the CREF stuff. How do we determine what's what? There's a lot of things, and especially the position on the field. If there's a foul from behind and it doesn't look like it's accidental, like it was an accidental trip, I always go with a reckless foul because we want to protect the players. So a player, especially if they leave their feet from behind or on the side, and regardless of whether they touch the ball or not, we consider that to be reckless. At a minimum, it's careless, but most likely it's reckless because we do want to protect the student athletes here. Okay. Again, you have to kind of feel it as the game goes, and the whistle and the card are our two tools to kind of keep that under control. All right. Handling, right? Handling is a foul. It's not a violation. It's a foul. Okay. So therefore, and one thing I didn't, there's no slide on this, but whenever we have a foul, we as officials have the ability to apply the rule of advantage. And I don't have a slide on this, but basically we can allow that foul to go, pretend it didn't happen, if it's a careless foul. If it's a careless foul, we can let it go, and we use a signal and we say play on. And in high school, we can use one hand or two to signal forward, put our arms out in front of us, and we allow the team to continue on as long as they've maintained advantage through that foul. If the player goes down, and especially if it's a reckless foul, okay, you still have the ability to let that play go on, but more than likely, you're going to stop the clock because the player is going to go off. Like USSF, can you come back later, stop the clock and say, a minute ago down here, number 7, that was a careless tackle or a reckless tackle, and you yellow card 7 and you allowed the white team to kind of finish out their advantage. You can come back to that if you want. You can always penalize something reckless or with excessive force. I will say, if you have a team, one thing about advantage, if a team has an advantage and there's a foul and you blow your whistle to stop play and that team maintain that advantage, you better have a reckless card, or better have a reckless foul there. That's the only time you would err on stopping play, because you want possibly the kid could be hurt. So even if they had an advantage, you can stop play, and coaches will get mad at you if you blow the whistle to take away an advantage from a team and come up with an ordinary careless foul. They will get mad at that. And it's one of the hardest things until you've officiated for a while to kind of relax and let the play go. That's why we don't keep the whistle in our mouth. We keep it in our hand. Okay. Now, handling being a foul is the same thing. And in National Federation, they can make contact with the ball, obviously anywhere above the armpit. Okay. Anything below the armpit is considered handling the ball, which is a foul. So with that said, someone could handle the ball, the team could still be at an advantage, and you would allow that to play on. Just like if they tackled someone and let's say the white team, it could be the defending team was handling the ball. Let's say 8 is on, is the defending team here, and the black team kicked it in and 8 hit the ball below the armpit. This one shows it above the armpit, but let's say they hit it below the armpit. You could allow that play to continue. Unless it's in the penalty area, then, you can still give it a moment, but if there's no goal scoring opportunity, you stop play because we're going to have a penalty kick. Anytime there's handling in the penalty area, the 18-yard box, right? We have, the penalty, the restart is a penalty kick. Okay. Now, one thing that's different in high school than, I'm pretty sure USSF, it's been a couple of years since I've done it. You guys can tell me. Even if contact is accidental, okay, it's handling. Even if it's accidental, it's just hand. And that's a rule clarification for this year. Also,
that was one thing I believe, but that's for the FIFA rules. Like if a player is on the ground and his hand is on the ground supporting his body, and the team kicks the ball and hits that hand, that's not considered handling.
Well, remember, FIFA rules are very different. That's a FIFA rule, right? Yeah.
Yep, it is, and I've seen it in like a very, very high level games not called in because the player was falling on the ground and using his hand to support him, not to to just slam on the ground, and then the ball hits him, and they were even watching VAR and did not call that a penalty.
Right. But in high school, we try to make it easier for the officials. If it hits the hand, which is below the armpit, it's handling. Now you just decide to the team that was offended by that handling, are they still have an advantage? Let it go. You can let the play on, or you can call it. That's up to you. One exception we have in high school is that they can protect their body. And I'm pretty sure in FIFA you can't. Like if a ball was hit at your face, you could put your hand up to stop it from hitting your face. You could stop it to hitting your groin area. So that would not be handling. Like they allow the student athlete to protect themselves. They can't make their arms bigger, right? But they can put it up to block their face, turn their head sideways, and do that. If it hits their hands, play on. All right. Because they're protecting them. They're protecting their body. They can't put their arms out, but they can keep as long as they keep their hands inside, cover their face, cover their groin, women cover their chest, whatever. And it hits their hand, play on in high school.
So let me ask you something. So you're saying in the box, right?
Anywhere.
It's all hand. So if you're at midfield and it brushes by, it takes a bad bounce and brushes off the guy's arm, and he's in a natural position, I would never call that handling. But you're saying in high school, if it hits your hand, it's automatically handling.
Yeah, no, these are good questions for Rich, because we have an interpreter that will tell us how to interpret the rules, right? And you guys know Rich, of course. So, but they've tried to make it. They say handling even. They're the words right from the rule book. If you have it, handling.
Yeah, I see it.
Right. Even if accidental.
I see it on the slide. Yep.
Yeah, even if accidental, it takes out the judgment, like it's handling.
I thought that was just in the box you were talking about, but you're talking about the whole field.
Yeah, the whole field.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. But you know what? We're going to go to an interpretation meeting, and you'll hear these questions because that's a new interpretation this year. So you'll start to hear, like, how should it be called? Like, and that's where the interpreter of the chapter gives us guidance. Like, so we all call it the same way, right? At least across the state of New Jersey, actually. For those of you that are new, right, we talk about ball in and out of play. And there's some terminology that I hope, as I know our experienced officials use these words, and I hope if you're new, you also use these words, right? We don't say the ball is out of bounds, right? There's no bounds. We say that it's out of play, okay? And if it goes out of play on the sides, we say it goes into touch. And technically, it's into touch everywhere, because whenever you can pick up the ball and touch it, it's into touch. So when it goes out of play, it's into touch. They're just terms that are soccer terms that we should use. But one thing to note is that the ball, whether it's a goal or to be out of play, the entire ball has to be out of play. So that picture up top, for those of you that are new, right? The entire ball has to be out of play. And guess what? The ball in the air is the same as if it's rolling on the field. It can be in play or out of play. So if the ball, like a windy day, completely goes over the line and blows back in, the ball has gone out of play. And sometimes it's hard to see, but you see it. So as example, on this one on the right, the ball is not completely over the line. The one edge of the ball is touching the line. The ball is still in play. Okay. As same thing when we do a corner kick, as long as the ball is any part of the ball is over any part of the line, it's in a good spot. The corner flags, we talked earlier last week about having corner flags on the field. It hits a corner flag, that's in play. Notice where the corner flag is inside the line. In fact, when you go to the field, you should make sure that the corner flag is kind of like in a spot, like not like a foot off the lines, right? So it goes out of play and comes back in, should be like right on the edge. So if the ball hits it, it stays in play. But a lot of times on a throw in or some type of corner kick, the ball can go out of play and come back in. That's where we as officials just need to see that because the ball in the air is the same as touching the field for being in or out of play. The other thing of out of play, there's an interesting thing. The ball can be out of play in the center of the field. And that is when the ball touches an official, stays on the field, and one of these three things happen. The team starts a promising attack. So if by touching you as the official caused a promising attack, meaning it deflected off of you and the defender, it went behind the defender, and now all of a sudden the other team's like off to the races, that ball was considered out of play. Or if it goes off of you and goes directly into goal, considered out of play. Or if it hits you and there's a change in possession, okay? If it hits you and there's a change in possession, then no, the ball, we restart with a drop ball to the team that was in control last. Uncontested drop ball, we just drop it down. If it happens to be inside the penalty area, we give it to the goalkeeper. Okay. So that's easy, right? So you kind of think about it. When it touches you, all you have to think was, hey, did it cause someone to be at a disadvantage? If it hits you, like, you know, the black team kicked it and went right back to her, or it just grazed you and it didn't change possession, didn't cause the team to have a disadvantage, play on. And you can think about that, right? We're soccer officials. We have all this time in the world to think about it. You could think for like 10 or so seconds and like blow the whistle and say, wait a minute, hold on. I just realized, you know, that hit me. I'm out of play. It caused the other team to get an advantage. Boom, we come back. Okay. Anybody notice something? If there was a high school game, do you notice anything about the uniforms? Would we allow that to happen there, those uniforms? In high school?
No, the other team is not white.
There you go. Yep, exactly. Exactly. Okay, so restarts. Soccer's all about restarts, right? The whole thing is because the ball's going to go in and out of play and we're going to have fouls. So we're going to have to restart the game somehow. And there's a couple different types of restarts. There's two restarts where the clock is stopped. Okay. And again, USSF folks got to remember, we are stopping the clock every time there's a goal. To restart the game, we have a kickoff. And we'll talk about mechanics and stuff like that later. But, and if we have a penalty kick, we'll stop the clock and the restart will be on the penalty kick. The clock will start when the ball's moved. Clock will, and we'll get into that in a minute here. Okay. But high level, clock stopped restarts and clock running restarts, meaning the clock's running and boop, ball out of play, B-O-O-P, ball out of play. So the ball goes out of play, we restarts a throw in. Ball goes out of play on, if we have a goal kick, corner kick, direct free kick, indirect free kick, or drop ball. So let's go into each one of these a little bit, especially for those of you that are a little bit new, and review for others. Okay. So kickoffs, right? One thing about kickoffs, we have obviously two halves and the ball's placed in the center circle and all players except the kicker has an option. The kicker may be in the opponent's side of the halfway line, but the ball must move and they can't touch it, right? So they kick it, they can't be next to touch it. So they have to kick it to a teammate. Now, can they kick it forward? Sure. They can turn around the other way and kick it the other direction. Obviously, most teams kick it backwards to a teammate and then start their attack. But, you know, some teams might go forward. They'll have two players in there. But one of those players is allowed to be in the attacking side. All the other players need to be on their side of the halfway line. And the ball's live and the clock moves and we have a signal to move the clock. We wind it. Once the ball is kicked and moves forward or back, once the ball moves, okay, then the clock starts. Okay. Throw in is the other way that we can clock. So this one is with clock running. Okay. That's when the ball is out of play over a touch line, which is basically those lines on the side, right? So a couple things that are important is that same in high school as USSF, player must have both feet on or behind the touch line when releasing the ball. That means they could have their heels on the inside of the line as long as they maintain their feet on that side of the, like on the line, they're good to go. Both hands have to be on the ball to throw it from behind their head, okay? And once it leaves the thrower's hand and enters the field of play, the ball is live because the ball might not enter the field of play. Now, different USSF, you guys might already know this, but you heard this saying, never in, right? Well, that doesn't happen in high school. The ball, if it doesn't come into the field of play from the thrower, say it stays out of play and never came into the field of play, you don't redo the throw. You give the ball to the opponent. That's an illegal throw. That's a different rule variation. I've seen a lot of USSF officials get that wrong. If you work a lot of weekend ball, you're used to that. That's different in high school. Coaches will get pretty upset with you if you don't give it to the other team. So illegal throw or ball not thrown into the play, then you award that to the other team. The other thing is,
what if they lose the handle? Like they're getting ready to throw and lose the handle of the ball. You don't. That's not a foul throw, right?
Well, if it isn't, well, if you consider it a foul throw, that's, I would say.
I mean, they didn't make the throw. They kind of, I mean, they were getting ready. Say it's raining and the ball, like maybe they lost the handle. I guess it would all be judgment. Like if you thought
you're right. It's a good question. I'd have to see it, but if she tried to complete the throw, then you could say it's a foul. A foul throw is an illegal throw. So if they throw with one hand, they throw from the side of their head, whatever, they just toss it in. It's a foul throw. Okay. Or the ball can spin. Used to be back in the day when I played, the ball couldn't spin.
Right.
But
Me too.
Now the ball can spin, right? They can do a flip. And guess what? Their foot can come off the ground after they release the ball. Foot can come off the ground after they release the ball. There's also accommodations in high school that there's a one-handed throw. If someone had a disability and couldn't use that other hand, that would be noted prior to the game. So they would say 7 has a disability. They do one-handed throwing. As long as you're alerted to that, you're okay with that. Okay. Goal kicks, right? So that's a restart when the attacking team is last to touch the ball before it goes out of play over the goal line, but it's not a goal. Obviously, if it goes over the goal line in the goal, it's a goal. And remember, the complete ball must be over the goal line. The goal line extends from corner to corner. If it goes over the goal line in the goal area, then it's a goal. If it goes over the goal line outside the goal area, then the defending team is awarded a goal kick. And they must place that ball somewhere inside the goal area, which is this box right here, right? That small 6-yard box that is right outside the goal. They can place it anywhere in there. Doesn't have to be on the line, but it has to be somewhere within that box, right? Remember, the ball could be on the line. As long as the back edge of the ball is not completely over the line, you're good to go. All defending players must be outside the penalty area. Remember, we call this the penalty area and the goal area. The 18-yard box, the penalty area, the defending team, the new defending team now, has to be outside until the ball is kicked and moves. Okay, once it's kicked and moved, they can come in. The attacking team can be in there. They can have 3 of their own players in there if they want. Sometimes they play it out from in there. One thing that's a little bit, I think it's different than FIFA, is that once you spot the ball, you're technically not allowed to move it. And honestly, I don't know what the penalty is because I just warn them, don't move the ball again, and then they never do it again. There must be a penalty for that. Maybe one of you guys, when you're looking in your book, email me if you find it before I do. But technically, the goalkeeper can't put the ball here, get ready to kick it, and then go pick it up and move it to the other side. So
I would just guess if there is a penalty for that, it would be indirect kick from the spot of the foul.
It could be, but it might be just a caution.
A warning. Yeah,
it might be. I don't know. Honestly, I kind of forget, but when I was putting
think-
these slides together, I kind of don't recall.
I
So
would say it's like a delay, like your delay. It's kind of
you
a
could,
delay.
and you could go stop the clock and say, don't do that. You have some tools in your arsenal where you don't have to super penalize that. But,
Yeah.
and again, the ball now is live. The defending team, they can come in here, but they can't touch the ball until it leaves the penalty area. Okay. So, corner kicks.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not live when it's touched. It has to leave the penalty area.
Yeah, they did change that last year. Let's look that one up. I want to double check
Okay.
on that one.
'Cause,
I want,
Yeah,
I
they
want to-
changed that in regular.
yeah, you know what? That might be the
weekend.
rule change from last year. Yep. The ball is live when it's moved. Yep. So I think you're
Yeah,
right.
or where it's moved, or when it's touched by, when it's touched by another player from the
Exactly.
same team.
Yep.
Like like, for example, the defending team cannot play with the ball until another player from the other team plays with it after the keeper kicks it or something like that.
Yeah.
I think the younger ages they do that. The older
Well,
age,
let's
Well,
not
no, the
confuse
younger
that.
age, it's the build out line and all that. That
Yeah,
doesn't.
let's not confuse
Well,
that. I'll get clarification on that. I'll send you guys that. It's just that was changed a year or so ago, but we'll get into that. But because you will get confusing if you have rules in your head from like different leagues and things. High school is definitely different, right? Corner kick is from the corner area. It's when the defending team last touches a ball when it goes over the goal line, but is not a goal, right? So remember, the defending team could touch the ball and it go in the goal, and it's a goal. A restart is a kickoff, right? And we put it in the corner arc. There is a lot of teams don't have the mark, but no players from the defending team may be allowed inside a 10-yard radius of that corner. And again, the ball's live once it's kicked and moved. Okay. Now, we're not going to talk offsides too much tonight at all. Well, that would be a separate conversation, but there's no offsides during the restart for a throw-in, a kickoff, or a goal kick. So you cannot be in an offside position, but let's save that for another time because that's like a whole big topic in itself. Okay. So free
I
kicks.
just have is that just for high school?
No, that's everything. Yeah. You can, there are you cannot be ruled offside if on a throw-in, on a corner kick, or a goal kick.
I was not aware about the corner kick. I know about the others, but I was not aware about the corner kick.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, after the corner kick, like we're talking just the kick, right? The first kick. Now, you could be in an offside position and someone plays the ball to you while you're in an offside position.
Oh yeah, that's a normal play game.
Normal gameplay.
Yeah.
Exactly. Let's talk about free kicks, right? Free kicks are when a team is offended by one of these things that we talked about, right? Fouls, typically. We award a kick. And there's two types of kicks, right? There's the team can elect to kick immediately if they want to. If they want to keep the game going, they can place the ball down. Okay, ball placement. Notice that one bullet says ball place. The ball must be placed in the vicinity of where the restart area is, which is typically where the foul occurred. Okay, and the ball cannot be moving. The ball has to be still. They can set the ball down and kick it and go. That would be like a quick restart. However, there's something called a ceremonial restart. Ceremonial restart is if you, as the official, the referee, one of the referees, decide you want to stop play, slow play down for some reason. It could be a caution. It could be a friendly warning to someone. It could be someone's lying on the ground injured. A lot of reasons, right, where you might want to stop the play. The other most common reason to have a ceremonial restart is that the defending team is standing within 10 yards of the ball and requests that you guide them to allow them to set up a wall. a wall as you see here, where you as the official are going to need to position the players, and you'll walk off 10 yards. And again, we'll talk about that when we get into the mechanics a little bit more, like who does that in a two-person game. And in that case, the attacking team is not allowed to kick the ball if they've requested for you to assist them in setting up the wall. And a lot of times they do that by standing close to the restart area. And typically you'll stop play, blow your whistle, and walk them back. If you have to walk them back, step it off, the restart now becomes ceremonial, which ceremony means that you actually control the restart. They have to go on your signal. And we know that in certain free kicks, it's either the lead or trail official. You might not be the person that is walking it off, or you might not be the person that called the foul. It could be the other official that actually triggers the ceremonial restart when everyone's ready. Now, one thing in high school, National Federation, and I know some leagues allow this, there are no substitutions on free kicks. We can only substitute on throw-ins, corner kicks, and goal kicks and kickoffs. Like those, when the clock is stopped for that reason, we can do that. Offside position is another thing remember I was saying you can't be offside on a corner kick, a goal kick, etc. You can be in an offside position. Again, we'll talk about offside another night, because that's a good topic to talk about all by itself. There's a lot. One of the biggest things that we are there to do is make sure that the game is balanced by players not being in an offside position and getting advantage. And it's different than FIFA, for sure. We'll talk about that another time. But we do need to know that when we're in a free kick situation, that one official is looking for the offside violations as well, and the other official is handling more of the everything else. Okay. And the ball must be kicked and visibly moved to be in play. So a direct, and we'll talk about this here in a second, there's two types of free kicks, right? And this is not an exhaustive list. I'd recommend you look in the rule book, because there's some other weird ones in there that kind of not even worth talking about. But the biggest one is offside. If you have an offside, if someone is in an offside position, which we'll talk about later, and you need to penalize the team for a player that's in an offside position, the restart is an indirect free kick. And all that means is that from the free kick, from a direct free kick, you can score from a direct free kick. An indirect free kick, the attacking team cannot score. It must be touched by another player. Could be an attacking team, it could be a defending team, but it must be touched by another player. So an indirect free kick, and by the way, because we have two officials on the field, both officials hold their hand up to signify to all the players that it is an indirect free kick. And we put our hand down when it's touched by the other player, one of the other players, right? When the indirect free kick is over, then we put our hand down. The other things, and we won't go into too much of this, but obstruction is like, we talked about charging when two players make contact with one another. Impeding the progress of another player when you're not in a fair charging position, like you're not within playing distance of the ball, that is called obstruction. You can't do that, okay? Dangerous play, whether it's for you danger to you or to other opponents, anytime you think something is dangerous, you can stop it, and then the offended team gets an indirect free kick as the restart, okay? If the goalkeeper handles the ball illegally, and there's a bunch of situations where you can read about, like they hold the ball for more than 6 seconds. Again, we don't go 6.2, we blow a violation there. But if they're illegally handling the ball, which means like maybe one of the defending team, intentionally passes the ball back to the goalkeeper and they handle it, well, that's an indirect free kick. Okay. So there's a few things where the indirect free kick could be attributed to the goalkeeper. Anytime there's a substitution of an infraction, and there's a bunch of other little infractions you can read about in the rule book, which will never come up in your lifetime, but they're there, right? So again, indirect free kick is a type of restart where the ball, if it goes in the goal, it results in a goal kick. It's kind of like it just went out on the goal line anywhere else. And the goalkeeper could let it go in. If they were smart enough, they could let it go in, and it's just a goal kick. The goalkeeper tries to touch it and it goes in. We have a different story there. So that's indirect free kick. The other type of restart we have is a drop ball. And we talked about that. That's for, we have a temporary stoppage. Two players foul each other at the same time. It could be a fight, right? We potentially, if we had a fight, we would give the ball back to the team that had it before the fight started, because we had this simultaneous infringement. The ball gets deflated during play. I've never seen it happen, but I'm sure it has happened. Or there's something unusual that happens. And the drop ball has to be 5 yards in from the touchline. You can't score from a drop ball. And we drop it to a player of the team that had last possession. In the penalty area, drop to the defender's goalkeeper. Yes, they can pick it up. Okay. All opposing players must be out of the player's area, and all their players must be, they can't be any closer than 4 yards from the ball. Not 10 yards, 4 yards. They can be a little bit closer. Because remember, you drop that to the player, they can just start kicking it and running with it. So you got to allow the defender to be fairly close to them, but not right up on them. Okay. We do not do contested drop balls anymore, where a defender and attacker are together. Just don't do those anymore. Also, simultaneous infringement is if the ball goes out of play on two players and you're not sure who it goes out on, you give it to the team that had let possession last. So if they literally two players kicked it out, I mean, typically we make a decision on that, but you could make a drop ball there. Okay. Penalty kicks. Won't go too much into this, but there's two, and I'd like to use the right words here. Penalty kicks are when we have a foul that occurs inside the defending team's penalty area. Remember, handling is a foul. So we have a handling foul. It's handball. We don't say handball, it's handling, right? As a good soccer official, we use the proper terminology, right? So handling is a foul that occurs in the penalty area. So the resulting play, restart, clock stops. The clock is stopped right here, right now. It will start when the ball is kicked and moved. And then notice the players are all 10 yards away from the ball. And that's why that little arc is there, if you've never ever wondered why that was there. And only the kicker is inside. And the player can spot the ball. You can hand the ball to the player. And the goalkeeper has to have at least 1 foot on the line. Okay. And until the ball is kicked and moved. And it's live, and the clock starts once the ball is kicked and moved. Okay. Now, we do have another term, which people get wrong all the time. At the end of a game in New Jersey, we play the overtime periods, the sudden victory overtime. Excuse me. However, we don't do kicks at the end to determine a winner unless it's the playoffs at the end of the year. Whole different story, and we prep for that. But those kicks are called kicks from the mark. They're not penalty kicks because there's no penalty. They're called kicks from the mark. So as good soccer officials, you would say we're not going to PKs like a lot of fans might say, because they don't know the game. We as officials say kicks from the mark, because that denotes it's not a penalty kick. That is a way to determine a winner in a tie game in a playoff situation. Okay. Now, what happens if in a penalty kick, there's a violation? Because things can happen here. So think of things can happen. One thing is that player can't stop. That's kicking the ball. If they come to a complete stop and start up again, no good. The goalkeeper must keep the feet 1 foot over that line until the ball is kicked. So the defending team, red, can't come and break into that area until the ball is kicked. Same with the white team. So there's a lot of ways that there can be an infraction here. And we have a little cheat sheet, and I recommend you print this out. I think I have a copy that's fairly small. If you remind me, I just have to find it. I have it in my little kit I carry, because like sometimes you forget. I mean, you can remember this stuff, but if there's no violation and the ball enters the goal, it's a goal. If the ball goes out, I'm reading right down the first column. There's no violation. The ball goes out. Notice it's out of bounds, which not is true. What do we know? Out of play, right? So I don't know, whoever made this up is not absolutely correct. But if it goes out of play, it's a goal kick. If it rebounds into the play from a goal or the goalkeeper, everybody plays, right? We play on. If it's held by the goalkeeper, we play on. If it's deflected out by the goalkeeper, we have a corner kick, okay? And if the ball is not kicked forward for any reason, this is another one of those things where we get an indirect free kick for the defending team. So for some reason, a wacky kid kicked it backwards and it didn't move forward or failed to kick it, it is a indirect free kick. But then look down the thing. If there's a violation by the attacking team, okay, so the kicking team, and it enters the goal, we do it over. It's a retake. So the violation could be maybe that kid took 3 steps, stopped, and then continued on and kicked it. It's a violation, went in the goal, retake, okay? But if it goes out of bounds, it would be a goal kick. Even though they had a violation, kid stopped or whatever, or maybe one of his teammates came in. If it rebounded from the goalkeeper, now it's an indirect free kick for the defending team. If it's saved, play continues. And this was the deflected ball goes out of bounds, right? Opposite for defense, this would be, let's say the goalkeeper stepped on the play before the ball was kicked and moved. It entered the goal, it's a goal, right? You can read down here, it's a retake for if it went out of play or rebounded in, because obviously it's you're putting the team that's kicking at a disadvantage. Re-kick if it was saved, retake if it's deflected out of bounds. And you're thinking like, well, there are ways to remember this stuff, right? And you retake if both teams violate, then we retake everything. So a lot of times you can just blow your whistle and pull your card out and take a look and say like, all right, what just happened here? If you can't remember this, like just pull your card out and look at it. You have time. Where are you going? The clock is stopped. Nothing's happening. You know, just pull your cheat sheet out and say like, all right, okay. So goalkeeper, you stepped in early, really early. You got an advantage here. And the ball went out of bounds. You tipped it and it went out of bounds. Let me see here. Hold on a minute. Okay, that's going to be a retake. We'll do it again. If you can't remember, okay? The last thing we'll talk about, and I'll give you a copy of this, and I'm not going to go into details, okay? But this concept of ACCSOA, which is at any time there is a violation or a penalty or a foul where you have denied someone a true opportunity to score, a goal scoring opportunity. Like they're going to, like if what you did to them didn't happen, they're scoring a goal. Now that's a big thing, like statement, like, well, what does that mean? You know, well, a lot has to do determining whether they can score a goal. And this chart tells you a lot of things. And the way we use this is not like a cheat sheet, but to kind of like understand how the rules are put together. Now, you guys that have gotten the new rule book, I haven't gotten it yet, but I hear they've cleaned this area up. Curious to see if it's easier to understand, but apparently they tried to clean the ACCSOA kind of rules up a little bit, at least organize them a little better. But if a player handles the ball in the penalty area, not deliberate, and the goal was scored, it's a handling foul, the restart's a kickoff, right? If it's not deliberate, the goal was not scored, it's a handling foul, we have a penalty kick. That's how you read this. You read it straight across, right? If a player handles the ball other than the goalkeeper in the penalty area, and it was a deliberate handling of the ball to prevent a goal, and the goal was scored, it's a caution and the restarts kickoff. If the goal was scored, not scored, then there's our red card, serious foul play, and it's a penalty kick. Okay. And you can read it. If the player handles the ball outside the penalty area and it's attempt to play the ball, there's no rule specific about that. Okay. But if the goal is scored, no, of course not. It's a handling foul. It's a direct free kick. That's just a standard handling. And you can read, you can read down this line. What if the goalkeeper handles the ball inside the penalty area? Well, they can do that except from a throw in or a teammate directly. And obviously, hopefully a goal is not scored. That's a violation. It's an indirect free kick from the spot of the violation. If it's inside the goal area, we bring it right to the line, 6 yards. That's a crazy play. I've never seen it myself personally in live, but I've seen videos of it. That's craziness. Goalkeeper handles the ball. This can happen. They come outside the penalty area, and it's not it's not a denial of a goal scoring opportunity. It's just they handled the ball outside. Okay, no goal is scored. That's a caution, direct free kick. If it is a denial, goal scoring opportunity, and no goal was scored, it's a red card, send off, direct free kick. Okay. And player or goalkeeper commits a foul, foul inside the penalty area. I'm not going to read all these to you. You can just see what I'm doing, reading across. They play the ball, goal scored, no, caution, penalty kick. Not playing the ball, no goal, send off, penalty kick. So you get the idea how this works. Now, could you print this out and throw it in your little fold up and have it? Yeah, not a problem. I would venture to say this is the most complex stuff of the rules to me. Like, it boggles my mind. You got to kind of think about all the different permutations. But the good news is that most likely the coaches don't know these things either. So you're probably okay. But, if you get the idea that for most of the time, that if there's something that's intentional, most likely you're going to have some type of caution or a send off, that especially if it denies a goal from going in. Okay. That's what I have for tonight. I know we went a lot over. Sorry about that, guys, but a lot to cover tonight. What I have on tap is we want to get into on-field mechanics and cover offside. And what else I want to cover? There's something else. I'll think of it. I can't remember now. What else am I missing? Oh, we covered a lot of the fouls and restarts. So we'll cover offside mechanics and on-field mechanics in our next session, which we're moving back to Wednesdays, right? Starting next week, at least for next week. And I don't think we're probably going to get together maybe 1 or 2 more times. The last thing I'll leave you with is I sent you a copy of our test. And what I'd like to do, I'm going to send out an email. I have a copy of the test. This is our actual test here. I have a copy of it online, and I'll give you all copies of this. And what I'd like to do, if you guys are up for this, I'd like to give everybody, like, say 5 questions, like just 5. Go research them, look them up in the book, and tell us what your answer is. You can go in here into this document and, or you can just be ready with the answers, and I'll just whack this test up. I'll take a bunch of them as well. I'll do as many as I can. And when we get together, let's just review the ones that are tough, and we'll just go through top to bottom and make sure we're all on the same page when it comes to the test questions, because there are some tricky ones in here. There are some ones that when I look at them, like, you could read into that a little bit. So I'll give you guys access to this, and you can actually come in here and do what I'm doing is like, you can highlight this. Like, you can come in here and use this little highlighter pen up top. So this little highlighter up top, you can come in here and say, make it green, right? Or I can make it any color I want, go up here, make it red, So if you guys want to come in and use this, or just want to write it on a piece of paper, that's fine. And we can review it. You guys all good with that? Maybe taking 5 questions? Better than doing the whole test, right? Good. Thanks, David. I see your thumbs up.
Yep.
Yep.
Good.
All right. So let's do that. I'll break the test up, give everybody, and then you can either do it in here or you can do it. Just don't delete all the answers though. Just don't erase things. Okay. How about any questions from anyone? And eventually when we take the test, we're going to go into the National Federation or the NJSIA website, and take the test online. And we'll probably be able to do that in another week or 2. Like, let's just get the test done. And look, if you want to go do all the questions, that's fine. You can do that. But let's be responsible for at least 5. And if you want to do more, that's great. Like, I personally do the whole test every year because I just like to know the answers. I don't like to be in a situation where I don't know what to do. And I know if you're new to this, that'll happen to you. Don't worry about it. Especially some of the level that we're working here. It's not like you're not working the Premier League final game, right? This is like high school soccer, and most of them don't necessarily know all the rules anyway. So make sure, I think, Tyron, are you registered yet? I think
so.
You are?
I think so.
Hold on a minute. I don't have your name on my list.
No?
Did you just do it recently? When I say register with the NJSIA?
I signed up with the NJSIA.
You paid with a credit card to get your background check and all that?
Oh, no.
Okay, so this is good. Let me show you. Let me come back to screen share again. So watch this. And I know some of you that have done this, you know, obviously it doesn't pertain to you, but if you are on this call, listening to this call, you need to go to njsia.org. This website, njsiaa.org. You need to create an account here and sign in. And what you need to do is go to the section that says officials and go to registration procedure and follow this procedure. Just follow it. Just walk through it and use a credit card and register for soccer or any other sports that you're doing. And you'll get your background check. And I think it's 55 or 65 bucks. I forget what it is. And remember, if you work the season, most likely they're going to run that same program again where you're going to get like most of this money back, if not all of it, probably more of it, even for uniforms and things like that. Last year was $300, which was really super sweet. I don't know what it'll be this year, but I hope it is. So you have to register because you have to have insurance. You get your insurance this way. You get registered with the state to be an official in New Jersey, and you get a background check once a year. It's a very cursory background check. But because the state of New Jersey can't work around children without a background check. Okay. And you have to do that. You create an account, but this is where we will, when we go in here, by the way, notice it says officials exams. So see right here, I got official exams here, and I'm going to go in and take my soccer exam. I'm not logged in, but that's where we're going to take it. Once you're logged in, this is where we will take that test right here. And that's where we get our results. You can take it as many times as you want, but we'll get 1 or 2 wrong because there'll be a couple of trick questions that we can't figure out. But other than that, I think we're usually pretty good. Okay. So make sense? All good?
Yep.
All right. That was a long night tonight, but I think it was a good one. So I look forward to, again, next Wednesday. And we have, for those of you that are listening to the recording, shoot me an email. Let me know you saw this great stuff. And we're starting the test. I'll follow up with an email this week and we'll go from there. Okay.
All right.
Good stuff.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right. We'll talk to you later, everybody.
I have a question once you stop the recording.
Yeah, let me stop. Hold on one
uh,
second.